Well, hello everybody and welcome back down into my basement dungeon garden thing. Figured I'd bring you along for this because I don't really know how much gardening I'm going to get done today. It's a beautiful Friday out there and well, there's chores that need doing. So yeah, since I'm down here farting around with some of my plants, I figured I'd bring you guys down. Haven't been in the basement in a little while, so I'll show you just kind of really quickly what I'm doing this morning before I get outside. Unadvisable activity number 1. I am recycling soil from all my dead plants, going through here, taking out any root clusters, big twigs, things like that, tossing them off to the side. That's how I came to be in a situation with this. Now you may recognize this as the planter that the ginger was growing in, and I haven't watered this in probably 5 or 6 months, but I dumped it out earlier because I was trying to recycle soil, right, like I was saying. I discovered I'd put a whole bunch of peanut shells in the bottom as kind of an interesting drainage thing. They're very soft now, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. But looking at this ginger root, I noticed, come on, focus little thing, that it is trying yet again to send up another shoot. So it's like the ginger root that just wouldn't die. So I guess, come on, focus again, I'm going to put this back in its planter with some of this soil, but I'm going to give it a bit of a nutrient boost. This never really had any aphid issues, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm not going to use any of the chemicals that I've got available for a nutrient boost. What I am going to do is I'm going to turn over this basement worm bucket, and I thought I'd bring you guys along for that as well. I found this, it's probably, well, Shock said it was for like a moss hanging planter. You stuff the moss in there and then you put your plant in it or whatever. I'm going to use it as an indoor compost screen because it's handy. It's got a little hole in the side there, but I'm not too worried about it. I have been rummaging through here and seen a couple of living worms, so things must be doing alright. However, when I got down near the bottom, it was incredibly wet because I always dump too much moisture into these things. So I'm going to try and pull out the decent worm casting quality, we'll call it soil, although it's really not. And the rest of it I'm going to put into this that's actually set up as a worm bin project. This top one has drainage holes in it, the bottom one doesn't. I think I've got some supports in there so that the water can drip through. If not, I'll put them in there. That's what PVC is for. Well, around here everything is what PVC is for. But anyway, I'm going to transfer sticks and stuff into there, so hopefully we'll get a look at what's going on there. Here I still have more soil to try and rescue. So yeah, it's bizarre and interesting as always. Do I recognize that I probably shouldn't be reusing soil when I've had as many pest problems? Well, yes! I know I shouldn't be reusing my soil, but there are 2 things that are basically forcing me to do that. 1, persistence. I think too much nitrogen has been a major cause of my problems, so this year I'm not adding any fertilizer to anything until it says it needs it. That said, I'm hoping that, you know, this soil is depleted enough that I'm not going to have any extra nitrogen left over causing me problems. And of course, the second reason, I'm broke. I can't afford to go out and buy new bags of seed starting soil and, you know, Frog Star or whatever, stupid. Like, there are so many, I shouldn't call them stupid, okay? They're brilliant companies that have come up with a great product that has helped an awful lot of people start their seeds, and a lot of people have recommended to me that I use these products. But I am broke. I live in a constant state of broke, and no matter what I do, I can't seem to change that. So I've just learned to live with it and work within that parameter. If I can find a way to keep reusing this same soil and get a few seeds started, then great. That's my only option. So please don't give me too much grief in the comments. Yes, I know this is going to be problematic. No, I don't care enough to not do it. It's as simple as that. I'm not going to be bringing in outdoor soil to try and start seedlings in. I will only be using my recycled soil for that. If I run out of recycled soil, then obviously I will have to go out, spend that money on a seed starting mix, but I really, really don't want to. What I do want to do is be able to use stuff like this. The vast majority of the soil in there either came from plants that died or came from the worms working over the various bits of scrap from my basement. You know, there's some tea bags and some coffee grounds and some random veg in there. But for the most part, this compost bucket, we'll call it, has been primarily filled with plant matter from the dungeon. It's kind of this recycling center, and I'm really hoping to get this to a state of functional and working and, you know, actually producing a good quality worm casting that I can really boost my plant growth with. And, you know, it would be nice. It would be really, really nice to grow a fantastic garden. I try so hard every year, and one of these years I'll get it right. It's just a matter of persistence. Persistence is everything. One of my favorite stories that my mom used to constantly remind me about, and I constantly see coming up on memes on Facebook, ultimately the difference between the man who succeeds and the man who fails is the man who succeeds gets up one more time. And that is part of why I'm John Tumbling Bear, guys, because I tumble, I get back on my feet, I keep running. And that's what I want you to do. I don't care how many times you fail in your gardening projects. I don't care how many things you have done that you really shouldn't have in the garden. I'm proud of you for trying. And I'm proud of me for trying. And that's really what this channel is all about. Trying to garden. Trying to save a little bit of money. Trying to have some fun playing in the dirt. So on that note, I'm going to go get my tripod, and we're going to start transferring some of this over to there and see what I've got in the way of dirt to play with. Cool. So before we dive into it and I clamp this sucker onto the tripod, here is what is left in this old worm bin. I don't quite remember why this died. So I'm going to sift this through into here. I've got my massive green tote. I might as well use it for something. Stuff falling over in the background because I did a hasty rearranging here. And I'll eventually add, you know, these worm castings to it. The big stuff that doesn't sift out through whatever that used to be, we'll end it back in here. I'm putting a bunch of rocks in the bottom of that just to make sure I've got good solid spacing. And then in theory, as I make sure there's a little moisture in here, when there's too much, it'll drip through and my worms will be much, much happier in general. So that hopefully will break things down faster. Yes, I know I should have broken them smaller, but I was frustrated. Threw them in there. It's just the way it goes. We're going to find lots of big stuff in there today. I'm quite curious, though, to see how much, we're going to call it compost for the sake of argument, I get out of these two bins today. So yes, let's hook this puppy up to the tripod and see what happens. So I do apologize. It's not the best of lighting down here. Terrible lighting for videos, and yet I'm still planning on trying to garden down here. Alright, well, I'm getting some little bits out of that. Not a lot, but I'm going to have to sift through that twice, I guess. Try shaking it around a bit. Try not shaking it into the hole. I actually kind of enjoy sifting through compost or, you know, worm bins or whatever you want to call it. It's one of those few gardening moments from my childhood. I was always the one turning the compost every year. But my parents' idea of composting was lawn clippings, dog poo, and fireplace ashes. That said, it worked really, really well because they lived down in Vancouver, West Coast area there. And it was pretty much always decomposed by the time I got to it. There would only be maybe 6-8 inches on the top that was still, you know, not quite ready to work yet. So being an enterprising young individual, I'd always just take off that first few inches and I'd start digging underneath the compost until it would fall, and then I'd move that over and dig under the compost. And everybody was always so surprised that I'd get it turned so fast, and I was always like, well, I don't see what the problem is. It's not like this is complicated. So we're getting some pretty nice siftings out of this, pretty fine. I'm impressed. This is working way better than I expected. I wouldn't be using it for the landscape compost or anything like that, but definitely working just fine to go through this first worm bin. I know the second one's going to be a lot more moist, but I think the screen will still work. So how many of you are getting ready for next year's garden, or how many of you are setting up winter gardens? I know Alex there over at Alberta Pepper, he's already starting seeds for his wintertime grow. That's kind of the way it goes here. I mean, he and I both live in some kind of colder parts of this here country. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. Do you do your own indoor winter gardening? Do you simply enjoy garden channels that come from a warmer part of the planet when you're not gardening outside? I know I kind of do both. I love watching the Aussies while I've got snow outside and they're complaining about how hot it is there, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I'd like to have a problem like that, but then you get right down to it, and no, I like being Canadian. I like the whole Four Seasons thing. I really do wish winter wasn't so dominant in the Four Seasons where I am now, but it is what it is. Anyway, I could just randomly babble all day while I'm doing this, but it's not very exciting visual stuff, is it? It is some nice looking compost, though. Cool, I will get back to you when I'm working on the newer worm bin, I guess. So this is the end of that first batch, and I have to say I am, really impressed and kind of excited to start using this. But I still got to go through the other bin, and I wanted to show you how that sifts. So, before I sift this though, I mean there is a lot of large debris I was kind of pulling through here earlier, so I might as well throw it in there. I do have some drainage holes in the bottom of this. I do have some rocks in the bottom, like I was saying, to help me lift it up in the future. So I'll just keep rifling through. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should bounce that around a little bit in the screen first. Alright, gonna be really interesting. When I was going through here a few days ago with my hands, I did find a few live worms. So I'm gonna try and be a little more cautious in this bin than I was in that, because I know everything's been dead in there for a long time, but I'm really glad I got around to sorting that and sifting it, because that's pretty nice. Alright. New tripod angle, I guess. Alright, well, I hope this works for you guys. Seems to be alright in the camera. A little awkward and weird, but the new worm bin compost, whatever, for the dungeon is just underneath the tripod right now, so I will be tossing some random stuff that way. Like that base there, sift through this, do. I feel like I'm panning for gold. Black gold, which traditionally means oil, but I guess to gardeners that's everything from compost to rabbit poop to worm poop. So far I'm not seeing any sliders in there. I keep an eye for those worms though. And most of what I'm into right now is still kind of the stuff I just sifted through, so I'm not really expecting to find worms yet. Whoop! Guess I'm going to have to be careful of that there tripod, aren't I? Alright, so I'll get through a little bit more of this here in our blue bin. Get down to some of the actual nasty, probably somewhat anaerobic stuff at the bottom of that. And hopefully we'll have a nice good pile here in the green bin by the time we get back to the next clip. Alright, so I've gotten to a point with this, worm bin here where it's just too moist to go through that little screen anymore. Excuse me, frog in my throat. But I am finding lots of little worms, and I found this rather sizable one down there. I'm over a dozen or so that I've transferred to the new bin. What's really surprising to me though is that I'm finding them in this area that is far too moist. I didn't think they actually liked being in this kind of moisture content, but that does seem to be where they're all hiding out. So, just going through it by hand right now. Like I said, kind of looking for worms of any and all sizes, taking the twigs, root bundles, throwing them under. But this definitely needs to dry out before there's any way I'm going to be able to sort it, or sift it, I should say. So, yeah, that about wraps it up for the worm bins. Well, I have to say I'm really pleased with the amount of good, well-sifted material I was able to get out of that. I am blown away by how much water is in the bottom of that, and just how clay-like the material at the bottom of that has become. Not to mention that the worms are basically in like a liquid layer when they had several inches on top of there that they didn't have to be drowning. And there's at least a dozen worms of assorted sizes in there with a whole bunch of plant material, so hopefully they can work it over while that dries. And this might just save me a whole lot of money planting those seeds, like I was kind of whining about. So perfect. Considering how dry some of this material is, though, I might just mix it into that worm bin, the one we're emptying from, not the one we're going to, just to suck up some of that moisture and I don't know, maybe help things get started just a little bit better. You may notice I have 4 little styrofoam cups here. These are double cup setups. They've got holes in the bottom and such. We have 2 of the tricolor sages that did end up sprouting some roots. We've got 2 of the regular sages that ended up sprouting roots. Most of the others didn't make it, but we've got, what, 3, 4 in there that I'm still hoping for. Beside it here, we've got the beginning of this year's hopefuls. Nothing's popping yet, but no great surprise. So paper lanterns, chocolate ghosts, Carolina Reaper, Jay's Peach Ghost Scorpion, El Oro de Ecuador, and just today, following Alex's example, because this did work, we've got some more chocolate ghost seeds and some more just regular red ghost seeds. So yeah, the Darwin survival table is already beginning to get covered. Must be wintertime. Thinking of seed starting though, Shocks and I are going to be getting going on those seeds that Charles sent up there for them Peter peppers, so we can whip them out and measure our Peters and see which one grew a better pepper. Probably going to be getting started on a few more of those varieties in that package too. Thanks again, Charles. That's a nice little selection of seeds. Got some seeds from Batman I'm going to be getting started here, so yeah, things are going to be real interesting. I'm not quite sure if I want to mix any of those worm castings into the planters that I'm bringing in with the peppers outside. I probably should. So yeah, I guess I will. Alright, thanks for your help there, guys. I'm not doing that today though, so you got a chance. If you think it's a terrible idea, let me know in the comments below. I try and answer these things with my morning coffee, so yeah, it won't take me that long to get back to you. If you're still around, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow.